With more on the US, joining me live is Washington Post national political reporter Isaac Arnsdorf. Good afternoon to you, Isaac, and thank you so much for joining us. Let's first of all start with your recent article in the Washington Post, and it talks about the Trump campaign foreshadowing winning enough bound delegates to firm up the Republican nomination by March. So a possible rematch, do you think, against Biden?
Right. They're looking at the first nominating contest starting in January and proceeding from there. And just based on the current polling, extrapolating out how many delegates that would translate to at the Republican National Convention, which will be in July, they would cross over into a majority in March, late March, when on the second of 2 days, 2 Tuesdays, when a whole bunch of states are going to vote. Now, that's not accounting for other candidates dropping out, whereas a lot of people are looking at the possibility that if Trump has a huge victory in the first two contests in Iowa and New Hampshire, that could be it. But there's never been a candidate who's won both of those races and not gone on to be the nominee.
All right, we'll get to Ira in a moment, but this week the Supreme Court disqualified former President Donald Trump from serving as a US president and won't be able to appear on the primary ballot in Colorado. How do you think this is going to impact his chances of running as president?
So that was the state Supreme Court in Colorado that made that ruling. It's going to be appealed to the United States Supreme Court, which is going to review it. Probably it's expected in time for the Colorado primary that would be in March on one of those two big days that I mentioned. A number of other lawsuits have tried this in other states and been unsuccessful. The Trump campaign feels very good about their chances at the Supreme Court to reverse that decision and allow Trump to appear on the ballot nationwide.
All right, because there was, I believe, a spokesperson for Trump saying that the ruling is completely flawed.
Well, it was a split decision, 4-3. And again, in other states where this same line of argument has been attempted, it wasn't successful. And it's going to be for the U.S. Supreme Court to have to settle it.
And how do you think Trump is doing in the polls at the moment?
He has a dominant position, both nationally and in the early states. That's, again, where those delegate predictions are coming from. In some polls, topping 50%, meaning that even if the opposition to him weren't split among several rivals, even if they could somehow consolidate and coalesce behind one person, he would still win the nominee. And when you look at the second contest in New Hampshire, the rules are such that non-Republicans can vote in that primary, independents and unaffiliated voters. And that's where a lot of, or several of Trump's competitors are searching, is to try to turn out non-Republicans to vote in the Republican primary to help them put up points against Trump.
All right, let's talk more about Iowa. You mentioned Iowa and New Hampshire just now, but why is Iowa in particular so significant?
Because it's first, because again, if Trump scores a huge victory there, one of his main rivals, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, has kind of staked his entire campaign on Iowa. So if he has a poor showing there, it's not really seeing where he can go from that. And it's not historically not been Trump's strongest state. He didn't win it in 2016. And so if he has a commanding victory there again, it really just kind of cements the expectation that he's going to be the nominee.
Well, it certainly is a big 2024 that we're in for. So, Isaac, what else do we need to be watching out for in US politics in 2024?
Well, this timeline of the nomination that we were just talking about is going to collide directly with Trump's trials in multiple ongoing criminal cases. The Supreme Court, at the same time that it has to decide this issue about appearing on the ballot, it's considering an appeal on whether Trump can be prosecuted criminally for actions that he took as president, even though he's not president anymore. So that's another question that the Supreme Court is going to have to decide. That's going to determine whether the trial in Washington, and another trial in Florida having to do with his attempts to overturn the 2020 election and his mishandling of classified material, whether those can go forward before the election. And then there are also separate trials going on in New York and Georgia. And so somehow this is all supposed to be going on at the same time. He's going to be in the courtroom and on the campaign trail and back and forth, and a defendant and a candidate. And it's just like nothing we've ever had before.
It is going to be a huge year. We really appreciate your time and expertise today, Isaac Arnsdorf. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.